The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, a weekly show about all things Port Adelaide Footy Club. I'm your host, Macca 19, and joining me as co-host, as always, we've got Fishing Rick.
Mate, Flinny is back.
He's back. You little
I'm
ripper.
excited.
Love it.
The Flinnmeister. And I love the rumour on the boards this week about the... who was it that got put on the long-term injury list?
Heath?
Yes. And the rumour that maybe Heath might have been on there for Flinny to be upgraded, even if it is a bit of a pipeline. What a fantastic dream that could be. I'd love to see him running around in power colours.
No, he's too tall. Wouldn't get a game.
Absolutely.
It'd be our new ruck.
That's it. And back on the podcast, we got Schulzenfest.
Howdy. How's Little Romping Winds going?
He's going well. Yeah, he's having a bit of a sleep at the moment, so he's doing a good thing. letting me podcast, so that's good. All right, well let's get into it, boys. How are we feeling about this week?
Flat.
Flat.
Tired. Oh, you're talking about Port Adelaide. I thought you were talking about me.
Good on you.
Right, no, Port. Well, no, I think we should be feeling quite confident, shouldn't we? Equals second on the ladder. I'm confident. What about you boys?
I'm glad we're playing Richmond. That's all I can say.
I reckon the boys are going to be spitting bullets this week. They're going to be very angry, very focused, and I actually think that maybe not playing at Adelaide Oval might be a good thing for them this week.
Well, look, let's talk about a couple of our players first. Cam O'Shea's playing his 50th game this week. Big old Cam O'Shea. How do we feel about that? He's taking a little bit of a time to get there, but it's great to have him back in the side again.
I'm surprised he's played that many, to be honest. I didn't think of him as being around that long.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I was a bit surprised to think that he's played the third of the games that Westhoff has is quite deceptive. I wouldn't have picked that from a mile away. But no, it's a great achievement for him, and hopefully he can get another 50 games on the board and get his name on the locker. And
obviously, Big Westhoff, his 150th game. A great performance.
I feel like he's been around for 250.
It feels like he's been around forever. It's bizarre.
It does, doesn't it? Well, hopefully he steps up to the plate this year.
Absolutely. How have we seen his career? Obviously, he burst onto the scene in 2007. He's been a bit of a mainstay up forward ever since. He's developed his game so much to become so much more than just a second or third tall forward.
I think his career is exactly why we need to give players like Butcher more of a chance, because Westhoff had half the board wanting him delisted when he was Butcher's age, and now he's one of our first pick players, so
yep.
Sort of had the same one good first year, then stagnated a bit, but then you just keep playing these guys and something clicks and they become good players.
I'm a bit of a harsh marker on old Westy. I think he's a good player. He's a flexible player. I still think there's some chinks in his game. He seems to, especially with his goal kicking, crumble under pressure when he's in front of goals, and he seems to disappear for patches in a season. And I'd hope for a lot more from him, especially now as an experienced player. But he's forged a strong career, and we just need to forget about 2009 to 2012. But he's not the only player on our list that could probably forget about that period of time either, really.
Yeah, I mean, inconsistency probably plagued his first few seasons, outside of his first season. But the thing I really like is that because he's not all that bulky and strong, he's really had to work on being a lot more clever than his opponents to win the ball, to take the marks. He's fantastic in his positioning, and as we know, he's got such a great contested mark.
Absolutely. I think if we're looking for the positives with Justin, I love his versatility, and And I think, as we've talked and spoken about in ad nauseum, his versatility means that really he's our third tall and not our second tall, and we keep bashing on about it on a weekly basis. Hence the reason we probably need that second tall forward in the side to sort of maximise Justin's potential in the team. But for me, it's his versatility and being able to just move anywhere along the ground, especially in modern football. It's a massive weapon now.
Yeah.
I think him and Trengove's flexibility is the reason we've been able to be so successful despite playing one less tall than what a lot of people want, because the fact that they can both play anywhere on the ground, they're sort of like a tall and a half each. They're like 3 talls between the two of them.
I think I don't know, I'm starting to go down the line that you can almost have too many midfielders in a side as well. There's only so much ball to be got, so to speak. And, so there's always going to be a midfielder that's missing out in getting the ball. And therefore, are you better off having that another influential tall, perhaps, which might get the same amount of possessions as the worst midfielder, but might influence the scoreboard a little bit more or influence the game in another presence?
We got the power to win, power to roll, come on, for Adelaide aggression, we are the power from home.
This week it's round 17. It's going to be at Docklands Stadium on Sunday. We've got a 14-9 win-loss record against Richmond, and the last time we met was a 50-point loss at Amy Stadium last year. Selection boys, a few dramas this week.
Yeah, tell me, what happened, Macca?
Still no tolls. We're going in small.
Is it that surprising?
Hampson's listed as an in, so that would be Rewalt, Vickery and Hampson. 2 of them are basically ruckman-sized, and they're going to have Tom Jonas and Cam O'Shea playing on them.
Yeah. I've got no doubt that Hampson will play to try and stretch our defence.
Does Hampson actually count?
Good question.
Well, I don't know. He's a very, very good ruckman. His form up forward has been a bit hit and miss over the years. But...
Are we talking about the Hampson that used to play for Carlton?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you put good and ruckman in the same sentence?
I did. If you actually look at his statistics, Rick, he has been a leader in the competition in hit-outs to advantage for the last few years.
It's just every other aspect of football he's not much good at.
Absolutely. He can't mark and he can't kick, but outside of that, his tap work is actually fantastic.
Getting 5 hit-outs a game and hitting them to advantage isn't really isn't a key statistic. I don't know. I'm being facetious now. I mean, look, I can see why they're doing it, and I was surprised Essendon didn't try against us last week, but obviously they still came up trumps anyway, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think it doesn't have the same bang, I guess, for me. Hampson, Vickery and Rewalt, I mean, 2 of those players aren't really in great form anyway, and Rewalt, you don't know what's going to happen, but I think the key for us is the midfield battle once again, isn't it? Stop the supply, and we should be right.
Yeah, when you play a structure like this, you absolutely have to win the midfield. The whole thing relies on you being able to get clean delivery into your 50 and stopping them from getting clean delivery into their 50, because if Vickery and Hampson may not be stars, but if they're 10 centimetres taller than their direct opponent and they get the ball delivered in the right spot, there's not much we can do about it.
If we strip out the last 4 weeks of our form, even though the Sydney game was great, the Bulldogs were quite serviceable. Last week we just won in pretty strange conditions for Adelaide. Our season form has been, we've been averaging 109 points before last week. So thinking of we're going back to an enclosed stadium with pristine conditions, you'd think that would have to be right in our element to again sort of hit our average of at least 100 points a game. Can Richmond compete on the scoreboard with that? Is the $1 million question. But I would be thinking that we're gonna be banking at least 100 points this game coming up.
Well, we want to play this fast rugby style footy. A lot of quick movement through the midfield, and this is probably the game where we want to see that. On what's going to be a dry track, what's going to be a fast track at Etihad Stadium. We tried to play that style last week and it failed. We really want to see that be successful this week because this is really not a game that we can afford to drop anymore.
No, we don't have that luxury at all. The last 2 weeks has sort of cost us any, gap in dropping any games, and we really need to win everything from here on in. And that's why I think the boys are going to be really motivated this week. I think maybe they didn't handle the pressure overly well of being extreme favourites the last 2 weeks, and I think they maybe believed a little bit of the hype and expected just to come out and have their way. And I think they learned a valuable lesson that it's not going to be like that. So we're coming up against Richmond that have only had 5 wins and a 12th on the ladder. So we should be able to accommodate that quite convincingly, in my opinion.
I think the fact that we're playing Richmond as opposed to Essendon and Adelaide, we might just be able to get away with one less tall. With Essendon and Adelaide, they pressured us so hard, and when you're being pressured so hard with a short side, then you end up bombing the ball onto the head of guys like Kane Mitchell, and they've just got no chance. But I don't think Richmond have it in them to lay 92 tackles or whatever it was that Essendon laid last week. I don't think they've got that level of commitment, so maybe this is one game we can get away with it.
Looks like Monfries comes out this week with a form-related hamstring injury, and Sammy Gray has come back in. Do we expect any other changes from the interchange group?
Well, Logan's in the 18, so he's pretty much confirmed as an in.
Yep.
Which means probably Dom or Mitchell will drop out.
Yep.
And then I'd like to see Newton in and Logan for Cassisi and Mitchell personally, but Newton has struggled to get a spot with Ken, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that would probably be my ideal bench. Would be Young, Impey, Hardlett, and Newton from that group, I would think.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for too, Macca. And I wonder if the masses on the boards would be a bit more subdued if we can sacrifice, say, a Mitchell for a Newton coming in and giving up that they might forgive that lack of tall presence coming into the side.
He really should have come in last week with the wet track, Benny, but probably a week too late. But hopefully he can come in and do a bit of a job. It's going to be an interesting game. They've got a very, very good midfield. That's where all their stars are pretty much. Trent Cotchin, Brett Delidio, Dustin Martin. It's a very, very good first string midfield group. Yeah,
and that's the worry for us, isn't it? We didn't tag Delidio last year, and he absolutely mained us. So I hope we learned from past mistakes. And we really retain those three as Delidio, Cochin, and Martin. I just can't see where Richmond are really going to beat us. And to be honest, it's a good thing that Matt Thomas is back in the side, as long as he doesn't annihilate one of our players.
I'm a bit worried about Matt Thomas, actually. I feel like he's the sort of guy who's going to be, I'm going to stick it up Port for delisting me. He'll probably have the best game of his career and then be playing VFL in 2 weeks.
Well, that's if he plays. He might not even play yet.
They've been playing Thomas most weeks, haven't they? I think he was only out through injury. I don't think he was out through being dropped.
I thought he got dropped. But you are right. It's going to be interesting, especially with Chappie there as well. It'll be interesting.
No, I'm not worried about Chappie.
No, I'm not worried about him either. It'll be interesting to see if he throws his arms around like he did against Schultz last year. But they do have a fairly tall defensive group, so it'll be interesting to see if he plays on someone like Westhoff, or if he goes to someone like Robbie Gray or someone else that's a bit smaller.
I've just got a really bad feeling about Matt Thomas. I think he's just going to take out a year's worth of frustration on us.
Well, it's not like he didn't get a good run with Port Adelaide.
Well, he didn't under Hinkley.
No.
Not that I'm not saying he should have been given more of a run, but I'm sure he doesn't feel the same way.
So who worries you about Richmond in this current team?
Dustin Martin. Well, he's the type of player that, unchecked, has goal-scoring power, ball-winning ability, and can do the uplifting, miraculous things. And he's one, I think, if he really gets on top. But he's such a bipolar character, isn't he? It was a game a couple of weeks ago, dominated a half of football, and then the next half he just dropped off and disappeared altogether. So, I mean, I think it's just the cluster of three. You got the Delidio, Koch and Martin cluster. If you could control them, the rest of the names are sort of just a licorice all sorts of mediocrity. So, I think that's the challenge for us, containing their key three players.
I'd like to play Jonas on Dustin Martin personally, but he's going to be stuck dealing with somebody 12 centimetres taller than him.
Yeah, I'd like to see Ebert go up against Martin.
That's not a bad idea, actually. Ebert could do what he did to Kennedy, because Martin is a good player, but he's not accountable.
Yeah, I like that matchup. And then who would go to Cochin?
I think Boak will go up against Cochin. I don't think we'll look to shut him down to start with.
I'd have Kane on Cochin, personally. Maybe White on Delidio and Kane on Cochin.
I think they've definitely got a forward line which could cause us issues. Vickery, you never know what you're going to get with him, but even though he's been heavily criticised this year, he still averages 2 goals a game.
Yeah.
Jack Rewalt is someone that absolutely tears us apart every time he plays on us. They do get quite a few goals from their midfield group. If Sean Hampson comes in, that's going to add another toll, which is going to be a bit of a problem for us, I think. That's probably, whilst I do think that the midfield is going to be where it's going to be won or lost for us, I do think their forward line is going to cause us some issues this week, simply because I think we're going in that one toll undermanned.
If we had Carlisle on Rewalt and Trengove on Vickery and Jonas on Dustin Martin, then I feel like we have shut down their sort of 3 main scoring threats, but we don't have any of those matchups, so we have to win the midfield and make sure they can't get on top.
So is there anything to read into the Montfrey's omission? Is it just a hamstring injury? Is it a Asada related mindset injury, or is it just that he's not in very good form?
Well, he might not be in good form because he was injured. We don't really know. He certainly hasn't been running around as much as he was at the start of the year, especially when we're going in a tall down. A guy like Montfrey's sort of acted as the link between the centres and the forwards, so we didn't have to just bomb it in, but he hasn't been able to do that.
So do you think that there's any way that Mitchell will hold his spot in the side, boys?
I think he's a big chance to hold his spot, but personally I would have him drop this week. But we know that Kenny likes him. He has been playing regular footy, so yeah, there's every chance that he'll stay in the side. Let's get on to our top 4 questions. Time to stand up. Rick, I'll start with you, mate.
The Ebert man. I want Bradley to stand up, Macca. He's, I think since the Sydney game, he has been below his best, and we need his line running, goal kicking best this weekend.
Good call. Schulte?
I think it's Westhoff just out of necessity. He's got to play 3 positions on his own this weekend, so better be up for it.
For me, it's just the entire Port Adelaide Footy Club. I think the entire group has to stand up this week, from the coaching staff down to the leadership group, down to the sub. Everyone that has anything at all to do with this week's match needs to be switched on and committed to getting the win before the season gets away from us. And the danger man, Schulte?
Rick's going to laugh at me again, but I've just got this nagging feeling that Matt Thomas is going to kill us, and it's not going to shake me until the game's over.
Wouldn't it be bad if he kicked a winner?
Well, Ben Jacobs bloody kicked the goal that put North in front, didn't he? That was worse than Matt Thomas.
Yeah, don't remind us.
Screw
That
him.
was worse than Matt.
Where's Tango? You should be bleeping that out.
Yeah, I can't be bothered getting up to get Tango off the floor. Otherwise, yeah, I'd get Tango. That's just outrageous.
It is. Rick, your danger man?
My danger man would be outside of the umpires reaming us once again away from Adelaide. I'm going to stick with Delidio. I just really don't want him getting 40 possessions on his own. It will hurt us immensely.
All right, my danger man this week is going to be Jack Rewalt, only because he averages more goals per game against Port than any club except for GWS, and that's only because he just kicked, a dozen goals against them a few weeks back. He's kicked 15 goals in the last 3 matches against Port Adelaide, and he's won Brownlow votes in all 3. And we've tried Chaplin and Carlisle on him for minimal result in the last couple of years. So who goes to him now? Do we try the physical Jonas to try and put him off his game a little bit, or do we go with Homps, who can keep up with him and who we know is a fantastic spoiler of the footy? I think whoever goes to him, I think Rewalt holds the key to Richmond winning this game.
We did try Jonas on him last year in the first quarter, and that didn't work at all. But I think we might just have to play Jonas on him out of necessity, because otherwise he's going to be playing on Vickery or Hampson, who are both 12 centimetres taller than him. Whereas at least Homps and O'Shea are at least above 190, even if they're not sort of Trengove tall.
And the key to winning, Rick?
Play some half-decent footy with some proper skills, Macca. As we saw last week, our skills were deplorable. Our set shot kicking wasn't refined at all, and our delivery to anybody was just way off the mark. So I'd be hoping our skill set is a lot higher, and if we deliver the ball with a bit more precision, I think that will be our key to winning.
Nice. Schulte?
I know I've said it, I think about 3 times now, but we've got to win the midfield, or we're just, with this structure, they will tear us apart. We have to not just break even, but convincingly win the midfield, because they're going to win the forward line, and they're probably going to win the defence.
Yeah, for me, it's being able to get our running game going. I think, unlike last week, the conditions are going to suit how we want to try and play footy. So if we can find space, if we can get our handball game going, I think we'll be able to control the game pretty well. Rick, put your balls on the line, son.
23 points.
23 points. Like it.
Easy.
Schultze?
We'll win, but only because we're playing Richmond.
Yeah, but how many wickets?
Close, 10.
Yeah, I'm going to say 9 points. I think it's going to be a close
one. You guys are pussies.
Well, after the last 2 weeks, I think it's fair.
Oh, rubbish. We came up against 2 teams that were absolutely desperate, fighting for their lives. And obviously our boys didn't find it fundamentally fight-worthy to try and maintain top spot, and obviously went in a little bit easier. Richmond don't have that same fight. They're just stuck in that mid-table with nothing to achieve and more to have by failing than succeeding as per normal for them. So I think it's a game that we should be very confident about.
Cheer, cheer the black and the white. Honour the magpies day and by night. Live that long.
All right, well, let's talk about the SANFL. It's Port versus North Adelaide this Saturday at Alberton Oval. The last time we met was in round 8, where we won by 26 points at Prospect, with Johnny Butcher kicking 5 that day. How do we see this game? It looks like we've got a lot of our key players back in the side this week.
Flinny!
That's
all that matters.
Stewie, Maury, Jake Johansson for his first game this year as well.
I'm really excited that Moore's back in the side. I really want him pushing for first team selection, so I'm hoping that he can have a big outing this week.
Yeah, he's the missing key in my opinion to our AFL side. That is.
He could almost be a key defender this week.
That's a big call.
Where was the boom boom?
Boom boom.
Yeah, that was my joke for the night.
There you go.
Was it?
That's your joke for the night.
That was my joke for the
If
night.
you have to tell people it's a joke, then it's not a very good joke.
That was my accountant's joke for the night.
Oh dear.
There's nothing.
You think someone like Needle drop back in? He's listed as an out, but you would think he'd come back into that side as well.
There's nothing really to be gained from playing Dom in the SANFL, is there?
No.
So do we all want to see Butcher kick another 5 goals this week?
I want to see Mason Shaw kick another 5 goals this week. That'd be fantastic. And if Butcher can kick another 5 goals as well, that'd be great. That would mean we'll win by a very large margin, I would think.
And then we'll still pick Hitchcock next week instead.
Absolutely.
Steady on. Even on our list anymore. But isn't he injured at the moment, or is he back from injury?
He was assessed. Did he get picked? If not this week, he'll be back next week.
He's not listed.
Well, Ken will rush him straight back in next week. Doesn't need the SANFL.
He's perpetually injured.
I actually like Hitchcock. I think it's just a shame that he can't take that next step up. I think, he's actually got some very good skills as a footballer, but he every time he just gets up to the highest level, his body just can't handle the impact.
I think
It's a bit of a shame.
I think he's every bit as good as Sam Gray, and Sam Gray's played 7 or 8 games for us this year. But as you said, you can't get enough consistent form up to sort of be realistically considered for selection.
Yeah.
But I am hoping that Brendan Archie can continue his form he's had over the last month.
Absolutely. He's had a great month of footy, and hopefully that can continue. Stevie Summerton, it's his 150th game this week. He burst onto the scene at 18 years old in 2006 and became a key midfielder in 2007. And he hasn't really looked back since then. How have we seen his career?
Could you imagine this time last year that Stephen Summerton would be the captain of the Power Reserves team?
Not at all. Not after his rant on Facebook.
I think that was a very important one-club signing to sort of let some of the Magpies Forever types know that we're still the PAFC.
So what about Paul Stewart? He's coming back. Where's he at?
Great to have him back. I think, where's he at? I think he's going to struggle to stay on the list next year. He'll either be delisted or he'll seek out free agency, I would think. There's a lot of talk that the Crows are interested in him.
It's a bit of a shame.
I'd like to keep Paul on the list, but to be honest, he'd be mad if he didn't go somewhere where he'd get more regular games, because there are plenty of clubs where he would get more regular games.
Yeah.
But is it? I mean, really, when he's played enough to show that he deserves to be a starting 22 player. I mean, if he was that good, he would have cemented a spot inside.
He was best 22 for us until Ken Hinkley came along.
Yeah, which means
when we were a bottom team. Well, if he goes to St Kilda or Brisbane, they don't have the quality of players that we do, and he would still be in their best 22, just like he was in our best 22 when we were crap.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to make a best 22 of a top 4 side, but he's been in fantastic form this year in the SANFL, and he's been pretty unlucky not to get more games at AFL level this year. And I definitely think that if he was to go to a bottom 4 or a bottom 6 club, that he would play 22 games a year, as you said, Schulze, as he did with us. But look, the last thing that I want to bring up is something that I just posted on the boards not that long ago. It was only about half an hour ago, which is an article written by Caroline Wilson today, where it states that Ian Collins predicted that Port Adelaide would go broke in 3 years under the Adelaide Oval deal. She also states that the SANFL wanted to turf Keith Thomas because there was a lot of animosity there from the SANFL, and he was challenging aspects of the Adelaide Oval contract.
When's this? When did they want to turf Keith Thomas?
Last year.
Right. And when did Collins come out with this statement?
Not that long ago.
Is that the actual current agreement, or is that the first proposed agreement?
That's the first proposed agreement.
Okay.
Well, where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, we all know that the agreement isn't perfect at the moment, and both the Power and the Crows are sort of been releasing or leaking information to suggest that nothing is what it appears to be. And I think this is probably just another vehicle, maybe from Port Adelaide, who Caroline's been a great advocate of over the last couple of years, to try and get that message out now that the talks are on. But I mean, we're only getting 1/100th of probably the truth in the media, or what's actually fact at the moment. But what we're receiving doesn't seem to be overly pleasant, does it, in relation to the returns for the crowds that we're actually generating?
We are predicting probably a loss, but hopeful of a break-even result, which is just insane when you consider all the growth that we've had this year in terms of memberships, corporate support. We can't make money at this ground with nearly 100,000 people, average between our two clubs. That's just ridiculous.
No, it is ridiculous.
Wasn't it a ridiculous conflict of interest in that first paragraph talking about Keith Thomas being SANFL wanting to shunt him out for doing his job and arguing for the best interests of the power? Well, the SANFL held our license, but were then bargaining against us. It's just a ridiculous state of affairs. I can't believe it went on for so long.
Well, I guess it's the whole mentality that the SANFL doesn't give a shit about the AFL, and the SANFL they really care about is just making money. That's all it is. And the problem is that all it's doing is actually making the SANFL lazy. They're not really trying to develop their own game properly, but all they're trying to do is just sponge money off the AFL sides, which they believe is their divine right.
Wanting to sack Keith Thomas for doing his job.
Well, I mean, they can't sack anybody now because it's not their license anymore, or soon to be. And I mean, I know I got a few friends that are very diehard SANFL and might be disgusted by my comments here, but I mean, it's time that they just sort of grow up and get out of the AFL shadows, so to speak, and become accountable for their own development of a league instead of just sponging money. And we've got to really go back to the government of the time and go, what the hell were you guys doing? Giving all this power to the SANFL and the quasi-SANFL through the SMA. I mean, it was the perfect opportunity for the government to provide us fans and supporters with pretty much a clean stadium, which from the AFL sides a perfect opportunity to become excessively competitive in the AFL system. But instead, they seem to have made a very quick and rash decision.
And considering the amount of fans of the AFL clubs compared to the fans of the SANFL clubs, I don't understand why the government would do that. It's not exactly going to be a popular state of affairs.
Well, is it? Or will the fans just wash over and not think twice about it? It's all about the money.
It is.
And like I said, the SANFL, they don't give a shit. The SANFL supporters don't give a shit. Why do you think the Crows, 2 weeks ago were asking North Adelaide to do the presentation in the North Adelaide club rooms? Because I think even the Crows are realising that they're disenfranchised from what was supposed to be their supporter base, which was leveraging off the SANFL. And they're starting to realise that even they've separated from the SANFL supporter base, and so they're trying to get back in bed with it. And it's because the SANFL clubs are saying, you know what, screw you. And I just think that animosity that we had in the late 80s, it's still there, live and strong, and it's just getting worse. And that's what they want. They want our AFL clubs being inferior and whatever. They don't care. They just want the money. And then what will happen is they'll siphon all the money out to the point where we're non-competitive, and the people won't want to go because people don't like watching footy teams lose, and then we won't make money, and then they'll be going, oh, well, that's their fault. They're not making money. I think after tonight, we should ban the SANFL being discussed on this podcast.
Well, it's a pity for the Magpies.
I'm talking about the SANFL bureaucracy.
Oh, okay.
I mean, but what are we going to do? Are we going to go, we'll go back to Footy Park? Oh, that's owned by the SANFL as well.
Tail wags the dog in this state.
So, what do? You can't, we're going to say, we'll go play at Albion? Go play in China, perhaps?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Hong Kong Magpies.
Thanks, Macca. You fired me up
for
now.
This evening, eh? Good. I woke you up.
All right.
Well, Schultzy, thanks for coming on again, mate.
Thanks for having me on. I think this is the first time I've done an actual preview or review. The other times I've just been doing the recruitment podcasts that pop up now and again.
Good stuff. And Rick? As always, buddy.
Pleasure. Go the power.
Camport.
Ports.
Goes forward again for Port Adelaide. No laughing matter for the Roos. Treadray. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, Treadray!